So I was going to watch this on my free time anyway, so I thought I might as well make a video out of it. Kyle Kulinski reacting to the Michigan rally, where Kamala Harris told the protesters, pretty much, let me speak, do you want Trump to win?
All right, guys, so now let's talk a little bit about, I just mentioned Kamala only has to avoid stepping in shit in order to win this election at this point, right? Trump is imploding. The Republicans are overreaching. Their polls are slipping super fast. But she needs to make sure, just don't have any big fuck-ups, right? Just don't have any big fuck-ups. Don't, like, put your middle finger up to your base and spit in their eye and tell them to go fuck themselves. That's it. That's all you have to do. And you can kind of cruise to Election Day, and everything will be hunky-dory for you. Well, guess what? A couple days ago, as I'm sure you all saw by now, she was doing a rally in Michigan, and she made what I think is her first relatively big mistake. So let's watch it, and then I'll break it down. Take a look.
I'm here because we believe in democracy. Everyone's voice matters, but I am speaking now. I am speaking now.
I think it's really important to remember that most of the Democratic base, a very slight majority, agrees that Israel is in the wrong right now and agrees that there is a outright genocide that needs to be stopped. So around half of the base. Very few have that as their number one issue for this election, and that's only in the Democratic Party. When looking at all voters, I think most voters agree with a ceasefire. So could Kamala have said, like, we are going to work on peace? I made a statement a few weeks ago. She probably could have said that. But the majority of the American public sees a terrible situation happening. They want no war, but they see fault with Hamas, and they see some fault with Israel. But it's a lot more convoluted when it comes to public opinion. So when Kyle says something like, don't spit in the base's face, it doesn't make much sense in this scenario. In reality, Kamala here gave some space for the protesters, and this is how most Democrats are going to view it, by the way. She gave space for the protesters here, and then she ends up saying the thing later, which actually probably makes her look stronger. How she responded probably looks good to 90% of the Democratic base.
So Project 2025. Look, if he is elected, Donald Trump intends to give tax breaks to billionaires and big corporations. He intends to cut Social Security and Medicare. He intends to surrender our fight against the climate crisis, and he intends to end the Affordable Care Act. You know what? If you want Donald Trump to win, then say that, otherwise I'm speaking.
Everyone in this room's number one issue, or at least like 90% of them, 99%, their number one issue is beating Donald Trump. And this is something I said before, where Kamala's been a positive influence in the Biden admin. She gave Netanyahu the cold shoulder. She said publicly after that meeting there needs to be a ceasefire, that what's happening right now is not okay, and also she's meeting with activists in a way that Biden never did. And we all know that Trump being the number one issue on everyone's brains means the number one issue is not going to be Palestine. And that's what I said in my last video. The number one way to make Palestine be a larger issue is remove the threat of Donald Trump. Then we could focus on progressive issues and also humanitarian causes. But right now, this room loves what Kamala is saying because they care about beating Trump, and that's it.
So you couldn't hear it from that video, but some pro-Palestine protesters stood up and chanted, Kamala, you can't hide. We charge you with genocide. Now, before her speech here, she apparently...
And knowing that Kamala's been a positive influence in this system, a bad system, we don't need to pretend like it's a good system. We can say and agree there are humanitarian catastrophes happening overseas, and it needs to stop. It's not acceptable. We can say that and also realize what the systemic and political reality is in the United States and find out what the best course of action is, where we can feasibly create change in that region in changing United States policy. And Kamala being told, we charge you with genocide, you can't hide, after she meets with activists and does these other demonstrations, she probably is getting annoyed, like I said in my last video. And we can do both. We can say it's a terrible thing, it's a terrible system, and also know what the political reality is. What is the way we can directly impact this issue?
Met with some of these people, these uncommitted voters, where they voted for uncommitted over Biden during the primary over the issue of Gaza. And she reportedly said to them...
And by the way, Kamala is not the person that you should be saying we charge you with genocide right now.
Them, like, look, I'm willing to meet with you again. We can meet again. they were saying we need a full arms embargo or we can't support you. We want to support you, but we can't unless you do a full arms embargo to Israel. Perfectly reasonable request. She goes, look, I'm open.
The request before was we need a ceasefire, and Kamala did call for a ceasefire, and now there's a call for the arms embargo. So another thing from a politician's perspective, and again, you can agree that it's bad. It's not a great system. Politics is not fun. But from a politician's perspective, you have a voting base which makes up a very small percentage of total votes in the country. It's not even enough to swing Michigan. Maybe if Michigan's decided by 20,000 votes, this issue can swing it, but it's really not that much to have that much political capital behind it. So right now she's thinking, is it worth engaging with this? Because if I'm going to come and make these attempts to move this direction towards a ceasefire and everything, Kamala might say, oh, like, is this how everyone's going to respond? Is it even worth it? If I'm still going to be called genocidal, why would I, as a politician, risk political capital and risk optics when most Americans are pro-Israel by going further in this direction in the future? And if she's having conversations behind the scenes and gets protested to the same amount as she was before she called for a ceasefire, then she might take further attempts to organize less seriously.
Open to it, but let's meet again.
You can't move goalposts. Even if you are fighting for a very moral cause, if you move goalposts over and over and over again, if you as an activist don't set realistic goals for where we can move, then these politicians will stop listening as much.
Right. So she met with them beforehand, had that conversation. Then,
and that's just, again, it's a word of advice. It's not a value judgment. It's a tactical judgment.
They protested during her speech anyway, which, by the way, that's probably the first point where now there's a little bit of tension, where you have some of the resistance liberals saying they shouldn't have even protested. She met with them beforehand. I don't agree with that. I think it's good to meet with her beforehand, good to get her on the record, good to set up a meeting for the future, but them protesting during the speech anyway is a message that this is not just some normal shit. This is not like, hey, we just have a difference of opinion, and if you happen to go against us, it's totally fine. This is like, we are anti-genocide. Are you anti-genocide also, yes or no? And so stepping up and protesting is letting her know this issue is not going away. We are still going to protest. By the way, what the fuck do you think is...
And I think protesting can do a big thing when it comes to moving public opinion. But like I said, everyone wants to beat Trump. So if you're going to be doing protesting in that form and not being reasonable within our current system, then like I said...
The DNC, you think this was a strong protest? It's going to be way more people at the DNC.
And when protesters won't even go to Trump events because they don't feel safe, they won't do this at those events as often. And also, there was a statement said that we protest Democrats because we can't move Republicans on this issue. We can only move Democrats. Then you're admitting the system is in a gridlock where you can't really force for a perfect change right now. And if you can't do that, we need to focus on what changes people's minds. If that's protests, great. If that's organized messaging campaigns, great. If that's playing along with politics sometimes, great.
And again, they are correct. These are not people. Let's be clear about this, because here's where the lies come in. These people want Trump to win, and that's why they're... That's what Kamala said in this clip, too. If you want Trump to win, keep going. If not, I'm speaking. She got genuinely mad there. Kamala, you know that they don't want Trump to win. Everybody attacking them knows they don't want Trump to win. The options for these people are as follows. Sit on the couch, vote Jill Stein, vote Cornel West, or vote Kamala Harris.
I don't know why Kyle thinks people are literally saying that they want Trump to win, or that Kamala thinks they want Trump to win. She was wagging her finger, sort of like a mom critiquing a kid. Like, oh, you wanna lose recess today? Or something like that. Again, it's not great, but she was giving time. She was saying, okay, we hear you. I'm speaking. And that's why she says, I'm speaking now, because she is talking like a mom to a kid. And you could take with that whatever you want. But she didn't literally say or think that they want Trump to win. She's saying what you're doing right now is against our strategy. What you're doing right now is against our campaign. We have a plan, but what you're doing right now is interfering with that plan.
That's what everybody, 99.9%, of the people who are part of the uncommitted movement, that's what they're going to do. It's incumbent on you. It is your job to let them know, assuage their fears, and say, no, I'm going to go in a different direction on Gaza, because we're not going to continue with green lighting an absolute bloodbath and a genocide. We're not going to send Israel endless money. We're not going to send them endless weapons. We're not going to, act like Netanyahu is a serious person who deserves our respect, right? She was doing well on this issue. She was very, very cold to Bibi in the meeting she had with him. She did not go to Bibi's speech. There's been signals that she's not.
Yeah, so when the actual leader comes and visits America, she takes a huge stand. She gives him a cold shoulder and calls for a ceasefire. When the actual leader, the foreign policy, the foreign leader, Netanyahu of Israel, comes, she makes a big stand. And now Kyle wants to critique her for her reaction at a rally like this. You have to weigh the levels of importance of what politicians are doing.
Not totally in agreement with Joe Biden, who's an absolute psychopath Zionist on this issue and is totally fine with carpet bombing women and children. So she was showing good.
Also, Kyle Kulinski describing Joe Biden as a pro-genocide lunatic who is pro-carpet bombing women and children. Even if you believe that, that is not a good way to get Democrats to care about this issue when a lot of Democrats like Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. It's just not a good rhetorical tool to get people on your side. I understand it's a very bad thing that's happening, but we need to be smart in our messaging and make sure we are effective, because if you care about the suffering of Palestinian people, then you also need to care about what strategies are actually possible or feasible in order to reduce their suffering, in order to change American policy. And you calling Joe Biden a war-hungry, pro-genocidal, I don't care if you believe that or not, it's not going to work for convincing people that they need to make this a priority when they're voting.
Good signs, but now this is definitely a setback. Look, here's the bottom line, guys. I'm not asking for...
It's not a setback. It's already out of the news.
All we needed was sort of like, honestly, an Obama-like response. Showing good signs, but now this is definitely a setback. Look, here's the bottom line, guys. I'm not asking for the moon and the stars here, and I don't think the protesters are either. All we needed was sort of like, honestly, an Obama-like response. Obama knew how to handle protesters like this. People are bringing up the old, protests against Obama where some dreamers were He knows how to disarm them. He knows how to let them know, like, look, I hear you, bro. We're going to work on this, right? Even there was a clip of Joe Biden. Now, Joe Biden's policy on Gaza has been absolutely pathetic and horrible and the worst, right? But there even was a clip of Joe Biden that was floating around social media after this, where even Joe Biden was like, look, be gentle with it. There were pro-Gaza protesters interrupting him. He's like, look, be gentle with them. They're right. We have to care about Gaza. We need to put more care into Gaza.
See, this is really weird to me because Kyle Kulinski doesn't really care about the pragmatic rhetoric. Like, he doesn't employ pragmatic rhetoric. He does it very, morally righteous, a lot of virtue signaling, a lot of anger. We just went over how he talks about Biden. It's weird to me that he's making this criticism of Kamala, saying she should use better rhetoric, because with Kyle's own standards, it seems like he would care more about her making a stand against Netanyahu a few weeks ago, because that's the more principled value statement. But it seems here Kyle's more mad about the optics of this situation, which is a little bit of doublethink, I feel, because he usually doesn't care about this as the main issue, as we know. At least, rhetoric. So Kyle's mad she isn't being good at being rhetorically effective and, diffusing these situations. So maybe Kyle's going to make a shift here to talk more about pragmatism, and maybe he'll be more understanding. I don't know.
And so, look, her reaction could have been something as simple as, and I showed you the full clip, by the way. There's people who are showing a smaller portion, which makes it look a little worse than it is. I showed you the full thing. Like, clearly she struggles with it at the beginning, and then she lashes out. But she very easily could have said, reiterate, yeah, look, I support a permanent ceasefire. And once I'm in the White House, we're going to bring peace to the region. There's going to be no more war. It's over. That's all you have to fucking say. That's all you have to say. And then everybody goes, okay, all right, that wasn't bad. I kind of support that, right? But she couldn't bring herself to do it. And that's a red flag.
It's not about bringing yourself to do it. It's a very quick reaction to that. And she should be prepared. I agree with those criticisms. She could have done a lot better.
For real, it's a red flag. It's also a red flag than the previous events that we've seen. She doesn't even have a fucking single line about Gaza. What you're doing...
I'm sorry I'm able to have a nuanced opinion.
You're doing a rally in Michigan. You're doing a rally in Michigan. There's a lot of states that have Arab American and Muslim American populations that are watching what you do and determining how they're going to fucking vote. These are states where if you win, you're going to win by a slim margin. You want to piss off tens of thousands of people by not saying the most obvious thing in the world on the issue of Gaza?
The numbers of people, and this is why I'm always big about looking at the political reality. So the number of voters that would seriously not vote for Kamala against Trump is extremely small, extremely small, especially Trump, who is actively pro extinction in the region for Palestinians. Trump is pro encouraging Israel to go further in every single conflict that we don't like. So when you're talking about these voters that are going to swing the election, that's not necessarily true. So you need to be realistic about where your political capital does stand, I guess.
Which again gets to the question here. How will she actually govern on Gaza? What decisions will she actually make on Gaza? I don't know. I don't know the decisions. I think it can't be worse.
Oh, now Kyle's having a big crisis internally because when she had time to think about it, she took a stand against Netanyahu. But now that goodwill is destroyed because of her quick reaction in a rally.
Worse than Biden, right? It's possible that... Is it unfair to say she might continue exactly as it is? Is that unfair? It's a question. It's a possibility, right? It's also a possibility she's far, far better. And if she's not willing to cut off the weapons, she at the very least may be willing to threaten to cut off the weapons, which might get them to stop anyway, right? Do I think that she could be as bad as Trump on the issue of Palestine? I don't think she can be, because frankly, Trump is taking $100 million from Miriam Adelson, Sheldon Adelson's wife, and there's part of that is, hey, you need to let Israel totally annex the West Bank. So he's already green-lighting that shit, just like he did a green light for moving the embassy to Jerusalem and doing the Abraham Accords, which helped lead to October 7th. He's been saying they need to finish the job. He's been insulting people by calling them a Palestinian, right? So if anything, Trump's going to send more money. He's going to send more weapons. He's going to have zero guardrails whatsoever, even fewer than there are right now, right? So Trump's going to be worse. There's no doubt about that. But people are putting pressure on you in good faith to get you to do the right thing. And look, if the issue of genocide is not pressing enough to get you to understand protest is the right response, then there is no issue pressing enough. And your real position is shut the fuck up forever, fall in line, and let me do my thing. And I don't want to hear people criticism, right? Look, the campaign so far, keep it real, has been going great for Kamala. She picked him.
It's a 3-week-old campaign. Biden dropped out, I think, literally 20 days ago or something like that, or 23 or 24 days ago. I don't know the exact number, but it's a very young campaign. I don't know why Kyle's acting like the entire campaign's being determined by this one moment.
Tim Walz was the best of all the possible options on every issue, both foreign policy and domestic policy. She deserves a lot of credit for that. She's had half-decent instincts to this point. But a mistake's a mistake. And the truth is,
I also like how a lot of progressives online are totally disregarding Tim Walz's stance on Israel, because between Shapiro and Walz, you could even argue that Walz has been more friendly to Israel rhetorically, or at least Netanyahu. Shapiro came out and said that he doesn't like Netanyahu as a leader, but Walz is almost aligned with Shapiro when it comes to U.S. policy towards Israel. But it's funny how progressives are giving Walz a complete break on that issue.
This is the truth. And in this instance, all you have are good faith people who genuinely want you to stop a genocide, stop sending money, stop sending weapons.
Like right now when he brings up Walz, if it's truly like, if he believes Kamala is saying shut up forever, then he also needs to say Walz is genocidal if he thinks Kamala is. You can't just like pick your favorite.
Israel. There is nothing to criticize there.
Time to criticize.
Absolutely nothing. And all of the smears of these people, it's disgusting. I love one of the arguments people are going with, why don't you protest Donald Trump? Well, first of all, they do, right? Like Donald Trump gets protested all the time, as he should be. But second of all,
sure,
Donald Trump, there's a 0% chance, by my estimation, based on Trump's policies last time and what he says he wants to do this time, that he's going to go in the right direction. There's actually
yeah, but you're not protesting Donald Trump. I think that might be the issue. It's not about protesting Trump or about changing Trump's mind. It's not about protesting Kamala or changing Kamala's mind, because you're obviously already doing that. Now it's about changing public opinion. And when progressives share these polls around, that makes it look like public opinion is 100% aligned with us, like they did with universal health care. Showing this data incorrectly makes progressives think more of the public is on their side than actually is. And if the public is on their side, progressives don't usually differentiate how much on our side are they. Are they for, Medicare for all right now, or do they just want universal health care or some form of it? Are they for end genocide right now and stop arming Israel, or are they for ceasefire? We don't want to see fighting anymore. There's different extents to how much people are for or against something.
A chance Kamala will.
So right now, it's not about going to Trump or going to Kamala. It's about telling people what's happening, informing them, and also getting people to change their minds on the issue.
But she might need to be pushed a little bit.
Why would they
protest
protest
Trump?
Trump?
And that's what these people are trying to fucking do, right? That's what they're trying to do. So, first big mistake in my opinion.
We shouldn't protest Kamala because we hate Kamala.
No, it was a bad move because you had all these
like
right-wing accounts, and all of the worst resistance liberals were cheering her on and yes-queening her. That's how you know it was a bad move. Look, your job is to shore up your base and keep your base excited. Because guess what? By shoring up your base,
most of the country likes what she said.
You're not pissing off moderates. You're not pissing off centrists and independents. You're not pissing off swing voters by shoring up your base. Guess what? Moderates and independents and swing voters, turns out they don't like carpet bombing toddlers either. So these people...
But they never are going to see Biden or Harris as responsible for that. Definitely not Harris.
People are helping you. They're helping.
So you look as a protester coming and saying, we charge you for genocide, Harris. Everyone in that arena or everyone in that arena thinks you look ridiculous.
Turns out they don't like carpet bombing toddlers either.
Yeah, they don't.
So these people are helping you.
But they don't live in the same information bubbles as you do. So you need to understand that and meet people where they are. But this should be like
you might not realize
101.
that. But that was the first actual real amount of passion I've seen come out of Kamala Harris in the election cycle so far. And it was basically to berate these people and to say, shut the fuck up, I'm talking. That definitely could have been handled better.
Them.
And
so she's berating them and lashing out.
Look, let's alternate timeline here. Let's say she came out and said what I hope she would say. Look, I hear you. You absolutely have a point. We're going to work on getting a permanent ceasefire, not some bullshit semi-ceasefire where they come back in a week and start bombing again. We're going to get a permanent ceasefire, and we're going to bring peace. And if that requires prodding Israel and twisting their arms, so be it. If she said that, this entire segment would be me singing her praises.
Okay, that's a little bit different. If she says we're going to twist Israel's arm to force them to put down their weapons, then a lot of Americans would not like that. And this is why it's important to understand where people are, because people are still pro-Israel too.
But you didn't say that.
Pro-Palestine. They're pro-Israel and pro-Palestine, and then they see Hamas as something totally different.
And I think people fear, hey, that might show her true colors on this issue. And this is not just any other issue. This is not, oh, hey, let's agree to disagree. And let's, reasonable people could, wrong. Reasonable people cannot disagree on the issue of minimum 49,000 Palestinians being killed in a few months. That's not something where reasonable people don't disagree on, hey, should Israel cut off the food, the fuel, the water, and the electricity for all these people? Should Israel bomb UN buildings and hospitals and schools? Reasonable people don't.
You need to lead talking about all of the bad things happening. You can't lead with genocide. You can't lead with all of this stuff. When you're convincing someone who is not currently on your side, we need to lead with what's happening on the ground and sharing more information about that. So Kyle, I obviously agree on the morality. I agree on the urgency, but we disagree on tactics. And the rambling like this and deciding when you want to be pragmatic, and also completely ignoring what Kamala's been doing the past few weeks and months, and what she's been saying directly to Israel and to Israel's leaders. Ignoring all of that is not how you build goodwill with a politician to get them to actually change stuff. It's not a fun system. It's not a great system. You have to, understand what we're, what we're up against.